Hello, guys, and welcome to our webinar dedicated to everything you need to consider when launching a ride-hailing service. My name is Lisa. I'm a lead digital marketer at Onde, a white label ride-hailing platform. And today we will be talking about all the details you need to keep in mind when you start your own ride-hailing business. The presentation that our amazing speaker Natalia prepared for you is just, I have no words, really. It's so good, trust me. And we will cover so many things, so many details like market types, different analysis on competitors, audience. We will talk about targeting, positioning, just everything. So stay tuned. Before we start, let me just mention that you are free to use chat and Q&A section to ask questions during the presentation. We will answer them at the very end of our webinar. And you will also get the recording and the presentation after the webinar. So if you cannot stay till the very end, you will not miss anything. We will send it to you. And now let me introduce our amazing speaker, Natalia. And Natalia is our head of customer satisfaction. She is a mobility expert with over 15 years of experience. Natalia supports a win-win approach to business, and she believes that the more we give, the more we receive. And honestly, I cannot agree more. Hello, Natalia. Thank you.
Hi, Lisa. You make me blush every time you present me, but nevertheless, thank you so much for your kind words. Welcome everybody who has already joined. The reason I actually started a few minutes back with the questions whether you were participating in our previous webinar was because actually the previous webinar got us to think about, okay, probably we started way too early with explaining how to approach to choosing the software for your ride-hailing business. So we sat and started thinking, okay, we really need to go a few steps back to understand where it actually starts. And when Lisa said that I will be delivering information on everything that you need to think, I actually disagree, because everything, basically, when it gets to starting a business, literally means everything, and we will only cover part of it, but hopefully it will be the part that you will find useful or maybe inspirational, at least in one part. Maybe the whole part, maybe not, but nevertheless, we tried our best to compile a webinar that really tries to get you to understand more of the why. Sometimes we ask questions as a service provider, but most importantly, why some business succeed and some don't right from the start. So, okay, we'll skip that particular slide because Lisa has already introduced me. But what I can say that in my current position, I'm combining two of my passions, basically mobility and marketing. And by mobility, I can say that I've worked for 11 years for different transportation companies, some of them being huge ones like DB Schenker, that I worked in several countries for. So I actually do know what I speak about. And of course, marketing here in Onde, that was my first company that I started doing that for. But combining the knowledge and the expertise actually has opened up some new perspectives of looking at things. We'll go over some marketing aspects in the beginning, because what we realized, as I said, by delivering the previous webinar, is that it actually all starts with thinking who your service will be for and who your service will be with, basically. And only after that, only after carefully going through so many things that are usually either skipped or ignored, or maybe done just a tiny part of it without you digging deeper into how and why those things are important. And that usually brings to choosing the software in a not the exact way that would benefit neither you nor your audience, or any other mistakes that could be made further down, but could have been avoided had this particular process been done properly. And I know that in majority of cases, entrepreneurs, business owners, you have so much on your plate that you usually do not get the chance to even think what is it that is actually put in place before the business starts. You either hire marketing manager that you completely trust, or you go to marketing agencies that you also completely trust. But me personally, I would prefer to know at least basics, that I would speak the same language as them, and that I will be equipped with the knowledge to understand where they're wrong, and maybe even correct them if possible. I know that marketing people sometimes really get arrogant, but yeah, we are like that. But nevertheless, we can hear and we can change our mind. So let me give you the basic approach how, well, not every business, but nevertheless, how we should start looking at launching a business. And the very first step that should be undertaken is compiling a very detailed go-to-market strategy. Basically, this is a set, like you can call it a business plan. In most cases, it's basically the same thing. But nevertheless, this is a combination of all the knowledge that you've accumulated about who you're going to be doing the service for, who you're going to be doing the service with, how the service should be run, how you will be making your money, how other people involved in the business will also be making your money, and how this business should be profitable. That's the overall approach to what the strategy is. And to start with, it basically requires a very deep understanding of the problem that you're trying to solve. By the problem, I mean either a demand on the market that is currently exists and has never been covered, or maybe has been covered poorly, or maybe any other pain that exists in your local area that you would like to solve with the use of your problem. So these the go-to-market strategy is basically understanding that problem and position your solution as the exact solution for that problem. Sorry for using the solution twice. In order to do that, what should you start with? And of course, everything starts with research. It's basically, you have to look around and understand what's around. Start to know whether there are any competitors on the market. The thing is that there's a trick part to that. Never be discouraged if you actually find out that there is a lot of competitors. Competitors and competition means that your market is already educated enough to appreciate the service. So someone has already spent their time and effort to educate people how to use similar services, maybe not the way you will be doing it, but at least similar. If there's no competition, sometimes it's actually not the absolute best situation, because that means that you will have to start educating people and account for that necessity in your activities as well. So if there's no competition, then you have to start with the basics, even sometimes explaining to people how to download an app, or how to make a proper order. So if there's no competition at all, be careful and plan for the necessity of education. If there are competitors, study them, know them. We'll talk about that later, but nevertheless, never be afraid of the competition. Know your audience. By audience, it basically everyone who will ever have an interaction with your service or your company. Try to understand what this audience wants and match what you are, or whether the competition or what offers with those needs, or whether you are planning to offer. Find gaps on the market, like what is not offered, where's still an empty space, what you can occupy it with. and understand where exactly you're going to be operating or doing your business. So when I say know your audience and everyone who touches your service, there are two biggest roles in your audience. Customers, we sometimes call them riders or passengers or any other word that is used in your market, and drivers. And it's actually a huge debate between who is the driving force of the ride-hailing business. But it actually closer to the same debate that we have with an egg and a hen. Who comes first? Who drives? Who is the driving force? Who is actually the key aspect, and who is the second one? But I would recommend identifying them both and understanding them both, because even matching proper customers with proper drivers would also be part of your agenda and your, let's say, action plan. So, but oh, by the way, if you can, while I'll continue, in the chat, can you please answer, who would you consider to be the driving force? Is it the customer who should get the main focus, or should it be the drivers? Just for you to think and provide some your thoughts on the matter. But to actually know them, again, we go back to research. And research the audience is actually a huge part of the contribution to the success, because knowing what exactly they expect, knowing how they live, knowing who they are, what their core values are, why are they using the services, what drives them in their life, what their passions are. It's basically and answering those questions would give you a way better understanding how your service can look, what your service should look, what technical solutions to use, what tone of voices to use. We'll talk about that later on, but nevertheless, this is something that starts, it's a foundation of what you will be building on it later on. So your audience will be thinking in benefits, and they will be expecting to receive benefits, not exactly and necessarily in the form of financial benefits. Sometimes it's emotional benefits. Sometimes it's just the comfort benefits, any form of them. But nevertheless, always keep that in mind, that your audience, either passengers or the drivers. Remember, every time I'm saying audience, please remember I'm still talking about those two categories, okay? So every time you will be presenting to them anything or offering anything, their minds will be looking for the benefit for themselves. This should be something that is constantly on your mind, okay? So let's go further down where we can get more information, more relevant information about the audience. Of course, you can read a lot of media, you can talk to people. What I absolutely recommend doing to anyone who is considering starting a business, and especially on the market that has competition, talk to drivers. Drivers will tell you things that you will probably never ever learn yourself from any research other than that, because especially find, if possible, unhappy drivers, because unhappy drivers would even share some confidential information on the tariffs that your competitors use, on their payment methods or payment schedulings that you can use to your benefit. We actually even recommend just basically just drive and talk to them. If you notice something like, let's say, okay, if you notice that they have two phones, and most drivers, they have 2, 3, sometimes 5 phones. I've seen 5 was actually the biggest number of phones I've seen, but they have several, and you can even start asking them like, why do they keep several services on? How do they choose, sorry, how do they choose which service to trust and which service to prioritize? Because your goal would be to be among those two. And so you would need to understand how to become one of those two. So basically how to push one of those existing ones already away. Sorry, I will drink some tea.
And meanwhile, I'll just say thank you guys for sharing your opinion in the chat about the question that Natalia asked. And we have different opinions. Actually, someone thinks about drivers and someone thinks about passengers, but thank you.
We'll get to that because this is one of my favorite part. We'll get to even discuss that. Also, a very valuable source of information are the app stores. So if your competitors are using applications to provide their services, go to app stores and start reading reviews, especially the negative ones. Sometimes, of course, with the certain benefit of a doubt, because sometimes people tend to exaggerate, so don't trust it word to word. But if some complaints are repetitive and they point out the similar issues, it would be great to actually take those pointers and make sure that you can solve those. Let me give you an example. Let's say one of your competitors and they have feedbacks on their app stores from drivers that the driver app is constantly crashing, or that they have a very irritative noise, let's say, and they want it to be fixed. So you can say that drivers are not happy. So that would give you an opportunity to understand, okay, in my solution, I should make sure that it's stable. And let's say there is a choice of what sounds I can use for driver notifications. So these reviews are absolutely gold mines for tips that you can implement in your research, and later on build your whole solution on that. Well, maybe not whole, but nevertheless include them in your solution. There are forum communities. I don't think that they're applicable for all the countries, but nevertheless, in some are very important. And of course, drivers talk. There are drivers association. I know that there are WhatsApp chats. If you can find those and talk to and listen to people there, also absolutely amazing information and tips you can find from there. So at the end of the day, what is needed is for you to simply ask questions and try to get the answers to that. Like, who are your customers and who are your drivers? What do they need? How will your service satisfy those needs? And how your service will be different from competitors. If you get answers to all those 4 questions, you basically are almost ready to go to the next step, but don't miss this, okay? And don't ignore either part, the customers and the drivers. Also, an example to give you is like, okay, let's say you want to launch a ride-hailing service for students, but students are, let's say, of prestigious universities. Imagine you have those in your location, or maybe there are actually at your location. So for students, it will be important to have low prices, of course. Well, we've been there, know that. But among that, they would also need some, let's say, prestige part included as well, because students are very demanding in their statuses, in how they present to their peers. So, for example, they will be trying to find a solution that combines both qualities, seemingly lower prices, but with the still better looking cars. So they will never go for the cheapest solution on the market just because they will be driving, let's say, the cheapest cars. So understanding that would also impose some requirements for the drivers and the cars that they will be looking for. So all those tiny questions, they will end up bringing you to realization of how best to meet your absolute best passengers with absolute best drivers. But on that, there will be a little bit more. So some more words also on the competition. As I mentioned before, that's never a problem if you have competition on the market. Never be afraid of it. It's actually a great thing to do and great things to learn, because your competitors, if they have been on the market, they've definitely made more mistakes than you have, since you haven't even started your business. So learning from these mistakes would actually give you a head start with your company, because, well, basically, if you study well, then you don't have to repeat. And also, they will identify which areas have already been covered with the service and what is left unattended or uncovered, and basically where you could direct your focus, especially in the beginning, because spreading your activities on everything everywhere, usually it's not a good way to start. So by knowing your competitors, also great to understand how big they are, how many, what do they cover, whether they're only local or maybe national level, maybe even global levels, what service types do they offer. If you're lucky enough and you've talked to several drivers, you'll probably even know what they charge their drivers, what they expect from the drivers to present, what their pricing, like basically whatever you can find. Some of the things you already know because you probably have used those services yourself before. So from the passenger side, you already know what's missing, and get some information from the driver side as well. So once you do that, also, as I said, don't ignore the app stores. Also a very useful tool to look for information and for pointers how exactly your competitors are positioning themselves is to look in the ads libraries. You can find their previous ads, their how they communicated, who they communicated with, like who they target, what audience they want to find. That also can be very useful for you to separate your service from them. It's actually an easy search. We even added a link here, but there are more. Once you receive this presentation, you can go over them. But at the end of the day, find what they do, find what's left for you to do. And by what's left, I don't think it's a small thing. Usually it's something that they've either overlooked or simply never even intended to cover. These are the things that you should basically begin with. So these are your starting points for your business. So once you already understand what, at least you have the pointers where to start, we go further down. Let's say you already know how competitive this market you're starting to or you want to serve is, like who works there, what the main benefits your competitors offer to your audience, and by your audience sometimes they can intersect, which service types and options. So basically they already you've identified that, you've understood what you can offer in terms of which service types, what the audience wants, what those needs are, which is not covered. So you've already done, if let's say we're thinking positive here. So we have that. Then we can actually start shaping the strategy to conquer the market. And the strategy in that aspect, I mean, the actual approach to what is the strategy, what is the marketing strategy, and how it's what parts it consists of. And these are the three biggest ones: the segmentation of your service, the targeting, the proper targeting of your audience, and the positioning of your brand. Let's put it this way. So by segmentation, I mean that you need to understand who, like, let me give you also examples. At this point, you should already have an understanding of who exactly will you be working for. Let me give you example of several types. Let's say you've realized that the uncovered areas are, let's say, women for women. If you're coming from countries that are very traditional and very cautious about women's safety, and you understand that women usually tend not to travel a lot just because they're not feeling safe being driven by male drivers. Of course, this is the current tendency pretty much worldwide, where businesses started to really pay attention to that audience and offer services where women drivers are driving women. If that's the case, then this is, and you know that, for example, this is the unattended niche on your market, then, and this is your this is what you want to do, then stick to that. And the rest, for example, of the conversation, well, at this particular case, it's still a monologue. Think about that with what I will be giving you. Or let's say another, if you understand that there is a huge demand for safety on the market in general, without any connection to the gender, and this demand requires not, well, maybe requires, you can use that and say that you can run deep background checks for your drivers, like pretty much daily checks, or add additional security levels to in the cars, maybe even add a camera there. So every time you understand what these pains are, you can start thinking what benefits you can do. So another thing is, like, let's say you decide to run a business for delivering kids. Well, okay, that didn't sound right. I mean, for transporting kids, let's say, from school back homes and from homes back to school. And in that case, you can also create a certain requirements for drivers, for vehicles, for safety protocols. And this will already become like a lining up of what your business might actually look like. Sometimes, for example, some expectations of the audience would be for local services. Let's say they're tired of being spending money on those global giants like Uber or any other companies, and they want local representative. They want to support local business, and they want to support local entrepreneurs, or they want to create working spaces for local drivers with a fair fares paid. So that could also be an absolutely great example of the business that you may want to work or launch. So it's actually endless list of examples, but I'm just trying to give you some so that you understand that, for example, saying that, okay, I just want to launch a business because I will be the cheapest. The cheapest would probably not be exactly the good example of positioning or identifying the service, because usually when people, regardless of the fact that we all like to spend less when possible, a simple word, okay, we are cheaper than everybody else, sometimes means, and also brings the connotation that you probably are not as attentive to safety, or you might be skipping some steps or whatever. So just giving you an example that cheap doesn't necessarily mean good. So that's why understanding exactly the benefit that the company brings is actually way more important than just saying, okay, you'll save money. And in that case, by cheaper, the way to transform it into the benefit, you can say that, let's say, we offer fair shares or fair tariffs for our local community, and help them grow, or maybe even support the local entrepreneurs. Any way you can transform it into the benefit for your audience is a way to go. Okay, I actually was struggling with leaving this slide here or not, just because it goes way deeper into the marketing side. So let me just go briefly over them to give you an example why we kept it here. Because segmenting your audience by geographic, demographic, behavioral, or psychographic criteria would also give you a better understanding who they are, what they expect, what they react to better. Just a few examples, maybe just one. Okay, let's say your audience is, well, let's say women, okay, and women, and I really would like to avoid any stereotypical thinking, but nevertheless, women are tending to respond better to, let's say, curvy fonts, even that, to nicer, brighter colors, not necessarily pink. This is actually another thing of stereotypical thinking. I would recommend avoiding a lot of pink in women for women services, but just understanding who they are, and the more segmentation and the deeper you go will give you a better understanding, even the tone of voice that you would like to use in your product, in your banners, in your marketing campaigns, in your communication, in your flyers. So basically everything else that follows will still be built on how well you segment your audience, and your, in that particular aspect, better even customers. So once you've done all that, you just basically describe that absolutely ideal customer, that, let's say, imagine who would you like that customer to be. And the more detailed description, the more detailed understanding you have, the better. Just even just try to describe, like, age, let's say, educational level, income level, maybe even hobbies, anything. So basically, the deeper you go into details, trying to understand your ideal customer, the better you'll be, the better equipped you'll be with instruments to talk to. We've added some online tools that are easy to use to even compile those personas. And while you have, let me give you an example how it looks, usually like that. So let's say we have, let's call him Mike. So we have Mike here, who is eco walker. He likes to be responsive, with his expenses, also very responsible with his health. So he takes walks, he goes to eco-friendly and chooses eco-friendly options whenever he can. But nevertheless, with that, he likes to travel. And if this is your ideal buyer's persona, if I would like briefly look at that, what I would recommend is focusing on anything that is either electric vehicles for them. They usually love that. And use the anything that says, let's say, you don't use paper, and for example, you don't, or maybe even you do support cashless payments because you want to avoid any paper waste. Anything that you can do, or maybe in that case, you can even say like, we send you receipt online to avoid misuse of, or to lessen the use of papers. So any messages that would connect with this particular buyer persona would be absolutely beneficial, because then he would love your business. And usually if those benefits are exactly responding to the core of the request that those people have, they are not that they will not be that concentrated on the financial part. And believe me, going into the price wars with your competition, usually it's a very last thing anyone would like to do, because then it's simply a question of who has the deeper pockets, and it's not exactly the job well done in this particular case. It rather you spend some time understanding the benefits that your customers would connect with and appreciate, than simply offer lower rates. And this is the thing. If you think that all it takes to win the market is simply lowering the rates, I have a very sad news for you. In most cases, it never has. Like, for example, if you think that people choose Uber because they have lower rates, no. In most cases, they choose it either because they were the first or because they trust the brand. And the brand is about diversity and opportunity rather than the rates. And of course, in most cases, they even have it higher. But nevertheless, these are the created images. So never think about the prices as your advantage or as your key offering. It has to be better, bigger, and deeper than that. And these are the steps that I've described is the way to get there. Okay, so once you, for example, if you have several personas, several key audience that you want to target, just choose the one you want to begin with. Make sure you've really done your job and you answer to their requests, and start with them. Later on, you can, of course, start adding new audience types. You can reposition yourself. You can add several service types that would be different from what you've started with. It's okay, but never start with an idea that you will be launching a service for everyone right from the start, because basically everyone means no one in the marketing language. Okay. Okay, once we get it all done, you understand who you talk to, you've done your segmentation, you've done your targeting. What is left is basically positioning. So then we need to make a statement and start talking. And by, again, in marketing language, talking means delivering the message through whatever channels you choose. The choice of those channels also, by the way, depends on who you want to reach. So where they are, where they basically where they live, and sometimes live means digitally live. So what resources they visit, what they prefer, whether they prefer to use Facebook resources, or maybe they tend to more Google-oriented resources, or maybe you have very particular local services that people tend to use. So again, choosing that. But positioning, I've been saying that in one way or the other through the whole presentation. Positioning is never about the features, it's about the benefits. So don't think about what exactly you can offer, think about what they can get. And it's exactly, it sometimes can have absolutely no direct connection with your service. Let another example, not from the ride hailing, but one of my personal favorite ones in the whole history of branding, marketing, and everything is Nike. and their logo and slogan, "Just do it." When you listen to it, there's no direct connection with sports or with sportswear or with everything. It just gives you a feeling that everything is possible. And that feeling is basically what drives people to the brand. So, and the feeling of safety, for example, can be something that will be driving people to you, or the feeling of stability, or the feeling of connection to something important, locally responsive, or maybe ecologically responsive, or anything. So these are the things that drive people towards businesses. Some of other examples of the positioning here, we have Uber, for example. It's back from the days. It's not something that they're using right now, but nevertheless, this is how they started. This is a ride for every price, meaning that they're not saying which price. They say we have diversity, and this diversity means that there's a place for everyone. Another example with, let's say, Airbnb, where they started to position themselves as a place where travelers benefit from a truly local experience and hosts benefit from extra income. Basically, again, they were creating a feeling of belonging, that everywhere you go, you feel like home. And every host is also secure and can get some extra income. But most importantly, it's these experiences that they receive, either authentic, inclusive, and sustainable for everyone. This is what Airbnb was selling. Another example is okay, we don't have it here, but I think we have it later on. I'll talk about it later on. So again, a lot of marketing talks, but let me give you some examples of these strategies. So we've gone, I know that it might sound a little bit boring in terms of it takes really a lot of consideration at the beginning, but then when you look at the results, how it actually comes all together, even in this particular, let's say, in this banner, we have Cayenne. Cayenne is actually a partner of Onde. This is one of the cases where we've been amazed at how well it was positioned right from the start. They realized that the competition in the capital was immense, incredibly hard to beat, would require a lot of financials and a lot of resources, and in most cases with very low probability of success. So they said, okay, you know what? We are not going to be launching anything in big cities. They wanted to launch in small cities. And even here, they understood that their key users and their audience would be local drivers who would work there for their people, and their buyers persona were people with families, local, that wanted a more secure way to travel, and basically have a service that was already available in the capital but wasn't in the small cities. And this is exactly how it's represented here on the banner. So families, safe, connection, and this is what we can do. Another example of a very good product launch was with the Hop Skip Drive. That was a case where, if I'm not mistaken, in Los Angeles, the service was launched for to cover the needs of parents, mostly working parents, who could not drive their kids to schools and back home. And their key defining factor was that before they would assign drivers to drive the families, the parents would get to meet the drivers. such an easy step, but it determined the everything. The core of the business was built on that very simple step. Another example is company Max Right, who launched in Indonesia. That actually was one of the smartest things I've seen so far. It's actually a manufacturer. So a company that manufactures those three-wheelers. And they were thinking, okay, we have those three-wheelers, but we need market to sell them. And we needed a channel to sell them. And especially in Southeast Asia, where, you know, people drive a lot of scooters and motorbikes, three-wheelers are very, let's say, outstanding in terms of standing out of the line of mostly used type of vehicles. So they said, okay, you know what? We'll launch a ride-hailing business for local companies, and only hiring local drivers, but they will be using our vehicles. They will be licensing them the vehicles or selling them the vehicles. So they use the ride-hailing business as a channel for the distribution of their manufactured goods. I think this is one of the smartest examples I've seen so far, which is also a great way to offer a completely different service that compared to what existed on the market. So we've done all the marketing, and now in most cases, people here are more about technical parts. And of course, us being a technical provider, we also more on the technical part. But what I wanted to underline that without proper understanding who you're going to be working with, it will be way too rushy to go and choose the software right away, because then you would not know what to focus your attention on. And in most cases, you'll be probably trying to find a provider who has pretty much everything. In most cases, even overpaying for those services, just because you need to make sure that you can do everything. And only after that, you can start deciding who you'll be working with. So my recommendation is doing it the other way around completely. Start first with the market research. Only after that, go and move on to choosing what type of software you'd need. Again, some of the examples why I would recommend doing that. Let's say if your key aspect is safety, then of course the more safety features that possible. And in most cases, some might be even custom made. If you would like to connect the software with some sort of CCTVs, or maybe other ways to determine and make sure that the drivers are actually who the drivers say they are. So the more, and then, for example, in this case, you would not care that much of, let's say, corporate accounts, because this is not something that you will be even focusing on. So start with all this marketing gibberish, blubberish thing first. And only after that, even make a list of what exactly would you need and what is not that important. And when you do that, then you'll understand maybe you'd understand who to go to first. These are some of the possible options to choose your software from. You, of course, can do the in-house development if you, let's say, have brother, sister, or maybe colleague, or maybe even local software developers that you trust and you can go to, and that you say that, okay, they will do exactly what I want. You can come to outsourcing software development. There are a huge number of companies that provide software developing services. There are white label solutions similar to Onde. There are free options on the market as well. There are no-code tools. There are options to purchase an already existing solution and simply copy pasting it and copying it in onto your market. So once you understand what you need, let's say you really need to have a technology that is able to adjust to a lot of sophisticated requests from the audience, or maybe a lot of requests from how the processes should run, then of course I would recommend going for custom development, either in-house or outsource. It is a tricky way to go because it's probably the longest and costs the most, but you will own the product and it will be unique. If this is something that is absolutely required, being unique and being outstanding and being able to adjust to even minimum shifts and changes, then of course this is your way. If you have, let's say, described all your personas and their expectations and they're like, let's say, standard I usually try to avoid these kind of generalizations, but nevertheless, they're like the majority of population of your local market, and they would expect, let's say, stable and scalable solution that they can trust and it would work and it doesn't crash a lot of times, but they don't have let's say, whimsical expectations or requirements, then I would recommend going for the white label, because then you have your solution published within, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks. It's one of the middle options that combines all the benefits of the in-house development without any problems with the necessity to sustain this solution and constantly update it and have a team of developers on your on standby at all times. Usually the white labels also come with support, so they're basically getting you some of your headaches away from you. But again, not for everyone to go to. And I would never say that this is the best way for everyone. Just make sure that it aligns with the list of requirements and expectations that you've created based on all the research of the audience that you've and competitors that you've done before. Me personally, I do not say that this is like let's say an universal truth. Me personally, I do not recommend buying codes or going for no-code tools, just because I think that even if it looks cheaper right at the start, eventually it will cost you more, because you don't know when it was built, you don't know the technology it was based on, you don't know the price of how and what it would require to sustain it, to update it, to change it, to adjust it. So it usually brings you way more headaches than you would want, I assume, especially if you don't have very strong IT background. But even if you do, come on, if you are a business owner, you would rather spend your energy on conquering new segments of the market rather than just understanding whether your code needs another update or anything. But again, this is just me personally. If you have alternative ideas, or maybe you've had experiences with those tools before, maybe you would like to argue with me by sharing some of those experiences, you're very, very welcome to share your ideas in the chat. We'll go back to them once we finish with the customers versus drivers conversation that we've initiated earlier. So again, every time, every request you might have, go back to that initial Bible we've created with your audiences, your positioning, your targeted, and all of that. So always go back. So and all the requests should be vetted against what you already created in your research. So if you don't need features, even for example, if you think that everybody else has them, don't get them, because in most of the cases you will not use them, and some of them are actually pricey, and they can be they can lead you to misplace your focus. So just understand, again, this is this should help a lot while choosing the provider. Again, if you understand who your users are, let's say for this particular thing, just give you an example. If you understand that, for example, your service will be used by tourists, then of course I would recommend launching a service in English, let's say, because this is the mostly used language, or making sure that you can switch languages within the app and not just stick with the local language. Or maybe you know that opposed to English, you have more travelers. Again, just an example, let's say you have more travelers from South Korea, right? So then having an option to switch to Korean language would be a benefit for you. Again, and goes back again to understanding who your customers are, what do they need, what benefit they would require, having a local service that is adjustable to their language would give them the benefit of safety, again, in terms of they can use it, they can understand it, they don't feel frustrated by not being able to order taxis or go anywhere. And the benefit could be also feel free to travel and see the country. All these kind of things can lead to a very great positioning and strategies of further development. So once you've chosen, another step would be to set it up properly. So define the service types that you need, define how your drivers will be making money, basically by setting up driver plans, set the cancellation logic. Okay, I'm not going to be reading all these, but nevertheless, once you have it, set it properly with all the things in mind that we've discussed, and define the launch date. And once you define a launch date, you're either already started or maybe about to start, then we need to position your service. Basically, we need to let everybody know, or let your audience know, that you're here, that you're ready to serve them, to deliver them the benefits that they're looking for according to your research. And we need to make sure that you deliver the message that they would actually react to. Again, here we are deciding the platforms and the channels where to reach your audience. Again, see, basically every other step brings us back to the very beginning, brings us back to who your audience is, what do they use, what do they do. I will basically be repeating that. I'd rather leave it for you to read it later on. So we'll have some more time to for your questions. But most importantly, do not overlook free opportunities to get customers. Not everything has to come from paid campaigns. Some things like, let's say, App Store optimization, or making sure you're using free sources or free opportunities with news or press releases or whatever, just never miss them on them. Talk to people, again, use the word of mouth channel, which is usually a very good one to promote. Get any chance to advertise yourself, even just using the social media. Sometimes even personal one works. Of course, the referral programs use your drivers to bring you more drivers, use your customers to bring you more customers. If they're satisfied, they will definitely be bringing more. So these are all the things that you can go with later on. Again, not going to be spending a lot of time on that. I know that a lot of things that I've talked about were maybe a little bit harsh because I was trying to squeeze as much information in the 1 hour as possible, and sometimes it's impossible. I would recommend you reading any or maybe all of those books. Maybe you've seen them already, but these are great examples of and great guidelines of how to set your mindset properly and how to constantly ask the right questions to yourself and to your team in order to reach the consensus and reach the results and goals that are set. But right now, I guess we can go back to whatever we have in the chat. And I would invite Lisa to help me with that because she had the opportunity to see the chat while I had not. So thank you so much for your patience and your time. And now the questions.
So first of all, the first question from PC, kindly, I guess, ask pricing model between us as the operator and you, Onde, as the software owners. So the pricing model.
Okay, the pricing model that we Onde offer basically consists of two parts. First is a setup fee, which is initial fee, we call it, to prepare your branded apps. We have 4 apps that we prepare, 2 driver, 2 customer for iOS App Store and for Google Play Store. Of course, you get the operator app and everything. So the initial payment starts from $4,500. So basically $4,500, if I'm not mistaken. And it has other packages that include marketing. So basically we can launch marketing campaigns, especially at the starting point, for you to help you get your first customers and first drivers. And the differences in packages, I don't remember all of them right now, but if you could leave your contact details as Lisa suggested, then we will get back to you and with a very detailed explanation how it works. But the second part of the tariff consists of the monthly service fee. And this where it gets sometimes tricky and people turn to ask us, okay, why wouldn't you put your pricing model on the website and all of that? And I'll be honest with you, because we work with every partner personally, making sure that the pricing model that we establish with that partner is the fair and reasonable for both parties to work with. Because our job, and I'm not going to be trying to say that it's not, our job is to make profit, similar as it is yours, right? So we all want to make profit. We only do that if you grow and develop. You only do that if we deliver you a very trusting and stable solution that doesn't crack and basically that evolves together with your service. So finding that balance is, first of all, understanding what your business will look like. What is your business model? Who you're going to be serving? How you want to be charging your drivers. And based on that, we discuss what would work. We have several approaches to that. The generic approach would be 3.9% from the trip cost, but it can be also the payment per driver, especially in cases where you don't charge percentage of your drivers, but you rather receive the fixed payment monthly. So all these options are possible depending on you. But as I said, it has to be a fair contract between us two.
Yeah. Thank you, Natalia. To one of the questions about the presentation, you will get this presentation We will send it to you together with the recording from this webinar. And I'm going to the next question, and the next is from John. Are there any advantages in setting up health service association?
Okay, I think I would need details to that. What do you mean by Hail Service Association?
Yeah, John, if you are listening
If
to
you're
us,
online,
yeah.
if not, Lisa, can you please mark this
Yes.
particular question and I will write John later on, okay? Because I'm struggling a little bit with understanding what exactly that could mean. And in order not to mislead you anywhere, I'd stick to my assumptions internally for now.
Yeah, John, I see you are online, and yeah, Natalia will get in touch with you after the presentation. I will make sure that your email gets to her.
Okay, just a note, not right after the presentation,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
tomorrow, because we can be in different time zones, okay? So just to make it convenient and ecological for us all, okay?
Yeah, sure. Sure. We have some great feedback from Josita about great information you mentioned.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have a question from Ksenia. When is it better to launch marketing activities to promote the app, in parallel with app development or after?
Good question. I'd say that the initial preparation, okay, so no, scroll back. So to launch a marketing campaign, it requires several activities to be done. First of all, discuss with the partner the purpose of the campaign. If the purpose is, let's say, reach and attract more passengers, then we usually send brief for the customer to fill in to provide more information. Again, we're going back to the presentation initially, who their targeted audience are, where exactly they want this service to be operating. So we collect as many data as we can. Our in-house brand manager creates a concept of the marketing campaign. Based on that concept, our designers create imaging and assets that we later use in the campaign. And these steps can actually be done while the apps are being in preparation mode, maybe closer to the end of the prepare and the development process. But launching it, of course, make sense only when it's already started working and you know that you have drivers on the shift. So, and this is going back to my initial hen against eggs, passengers against drivers question is, how many drivers should we have on shift to serve the passengers that we want to attract? But we also need to make sure that there's enough inflow of orders for the drivers that are on shift. And I've actually scrolled through the chat, and I even here I see that people think that for some are the passengers and for some are the drivers. Guys, we haven't found an universal answer to that yet. We do have constant discussions on that. We had even a panel discussion some time ago about how to motivate drivers. We have a lot of discussions with marketing, how to attract customers. And every time it's finding that perfect balance. As I said, you need orders to be coming into your app so the drivers that are on shift are happy and receiving orders and they remain with your product. But you also need to have enough drivers right away working so that if you draw more customers by, let's say, launching a campaign, you need to make sure that there are drivers servicing those orders. So we recommend doing the following thing. if you know that you're launching a campaign to attract customers, make sure you run some sort of motivational campaign for your drivers at the same time. Let's say you say, okay, guys, if you can even establish quotas, or you can even establish an internal competition. Let's say whoever serves more orders during this period gets an extra bonus or gets lower percentage commission from the partner. So you need to, again, look at those parts at the same time. Launching a campaign for customers means that you still need to do something to make sure that customers will have drivers. Okay, so never look at the business from one side only. But drivers versus passengers, I'm still not convinced who should be the first ones. Okay, so I think we'll have more discussions on that topic later on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure about that. But thank you, Natalia. The next question is from Marcus. Do you have a team that answers questions from Latin American communities?
We do have a support team that is 24/7. In most communication channels, they use English. We also have managers, Spanish-speaking managers, who work with partners coming from Spanish-speaking countries, if that's the question. But if the question is if we provide any support for any local associations, then I'm afraid that we don't. So unless they come to us and with legitimate, let's say, request, or they want to launch specific business, then yes, we do have it. We can communicate, and we do communicate in Spanish. And inside the app, I think we have more than 100 of languages. But most of our website and most of our resources, including the support database that has basically all the answers to frequently asked questions, or descriptions of how the system works with every aspect of it. It has, I think, in most cases, it's 3 languages, right, that we have right from the start, but English is usually the first, and Spanish usually is the second that we translate all the resources in. So I guess it's a yes more than a no answer.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Natalia. The next one is again from PC, and it's a technical question. So it's about some issues about the customer app. But let me just bring this question to our support team. Again, right after the webinar, I'm gonna just send them this message plus the email, and they will respond about this issue so that we don't spend too much time on this, because we don't have the answer anyway. And yeah, another message from, I'm very sorry, I will probably not be able to pronounce the name, I'm so sorry, but thank you for the feedback, marvelous presentation. My question, how can one price mileage price for riders and customers also in normal and peak hours from business and technical side?
If that's a question about our platform, that's the only one I can actually answer. We do have certain settings inside the admin panel that you can choose. You can establish the peak hours. You can determine how the prices are going. We have also launched dynamic pricing quite recently. So there are several ways to establish and set how prices can go up. But from business perspective, this is a way more complicated question. I would say again that it is a question of your audience. I probably am going to be saying that all the time. Why I'm saying that you need to understand what would your audience do if the prices are way high, let's say doubled or tripled. Some would prefer not to travel again at all. Let's say for them, it was just a matter of, okay, to go or not to go. If your audience, let's say, are business people who are returning from home or returning from offices back home, then probably they would still prefer to travel regardless of the prices, because they want, or especially in the morning, they want to make sure that they reach the offices in time. So for them, uh, the way more beneficial part would be being on time rather than the financial aspect. So those would still react positively to the price increase, even if you do that. But if your audience is someone who is traveling irregularly, and one of the segmentation parts was about that. So whether they travel irregularly, so that means it's more sporadical type of placing the order, then means that they would prefer to wait rather than to place the order. So again, to answer it from the business side, I need to know who your audience is. And let's go to slide number 1. And that was a joke.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you. We have some clarification from John about associations, and I would really love for you to answer this question now, because I think it's a very interesting one. So John mentions that there could be many and varied kind of hail ride services operating in the market. Traditional taxi, insurance companies, political and traffic departments will all present challenges. If you comment that competition is good, should we consider unionization or cooperatives could be of an advantage? Do you have any comments on these points? So do we need to have associations between all the different ride-hailing services to kind of address these challenges from some other companies, some government institutions?
It's a very good question. I think even answering that question could require a whole other hour of consideration. I would say it's not that easy to answer. And I'm saying that not to avoid it. I'm saying that because there's some, right now I have so many lines of thoughts running through my mind. I would say it's very geographically dependent, means it depends on what market we're talking about. Some would react to that, especially if it's something that is already an established practice on the market. Let's say in United States, right? We have unions pretty much every in every industry, and it's a working instrument to deliver a combined message. In some countries, it can be way more difficult to get people to see the advantages of that, in terms of they can be so different in their approach, how they serve and what service they provide, that they would probably not be very willing to do that. And there are countries that are still more authoritative in the way how they impose legislation, and they're not, it would rather escalate tensions than bring to actually solving things. So again, I would start by defining where exactly we're talking about. But what I've seen in Europe, for example, let's say in Germany, we had one example, and I've been watching that very interesting paradox for me. Small companies, let's say, who had five up to 10 drivers or cars, and you know that the Europe is highly populated. There are pretty much no free spots in some countries, right? It's all either urbanistic cities or rural, but nevertheless livable areas where people have farms and villages and everything. So, and they were creating those corporations, and they were even exchanging orders, just because they were, to my understanding, acting completely smart, because they understood that, for example, if a driver came from a distant area, they would rather give him an order to go back, because this is the way that they would support each other in the other side as well. So they were, and Germans, they're about logistics. And I know I'm giving that example because I mentioned that I work for a German transportation company. But again, sometimes those cooperations, even not precisely against or in battles with those agencies, but sometimes it's good even to make it a logical, sustainable, and smart business for all when they start exchanging orders and not just keeping to themselves. So again, hen and egg, there are so many good sides, there's so many negative sides as well, but rather, if you want, we can discuss it later on, because this is a very precise question. I think it's coming from somewhere. So I need to understand that somewhere.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. Thank you for sharing these details, because yeah, it is really a complicated question and so many factors that can influence this decision to create something like an association. So we have a number of other questions. Let's guys just answer them and I guess call it a day. But the next one from Adwot. What is the main difference between your startup package and your professional package aside from advertising? And the second question is, how significant would be the impact if Onde handled the marketing for me?
First of all, the main difference is exactly in the advertising. Even the price point, basically the price difference is the budget that we allocate directly to the marketing. We also have priority in app development. So basically it gets premier support. All their tasks are prioritized higher. It also gets an emotional support from all the team, because we like when people come with understanding that marketing is important. And when they do it from the start, they have higher chances of survival for sure. And that's why even our account managers, they are way more involved with companies that are coming, because while running the marketing campaign, you get way more attention from marketing team, from product team, because they also watch how your dynamics. So basically you get premium support. And by support, I not necessarily mean the technical support, because they are always premium and they work 24/7. But it means that you get more people involved and interested in your success rather than just yourself. And impact if Onde handled the marketing for me. We can only help with running digital campaigns. We do not do, unfortunately or fortunately, we do not offer anything else. Well, we also do, as a part of digital marketing, we do paid ads and ASO campaigns that can help you both with attracting passengers and drivers, but also making sure that you end up higher in searches in app stores. These are a bit two different aspects, but we always recommend combining them together. But handling other part of the marketing, especially the ones that I have just showed you, we do not help with that, because that requires a lot of on-site work, and we don't help with that.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. Actually, Edward mentioned that he was disconnected and didn't catch the first part of your answer, but maybe we can suggest that you send a message to Edward about this difference between our starter package and the professional package.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. Just leave your contact details. I think, Lisa, you have them, right? And it will be either me or one of my colleagues, and they will come and explain exactly what the difference is.
Yeah, yeah. And we have two more questions. The one is from Marcus, and I guess it is about like different payment methods. He's talking about Stripe, I guess.
Is it
So
Stripe or still a strike? That's
uh,
what I was like.
it is written like strike.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm looking at it. So, Marcus, I would again not to waste a lot of time right now answering it. Can you let me get back to you directly, me or if you'd prefer a Spanish speaking manager that can also be that can arranged, and we can discuss in details what payment options, because I know that we have different pay gates integrated for different countries. So right now I cannot answer about, like, let's say in every place in every country. It would require me looking in our internal documents to see what other options we have available on different markets. So that's why it will be great if we could discuss it directly and yeah, thank you, Stripe. Yeah, I was like, strike. You know what? And my mind was already running for, is this is a like a functionality that we should have where people can go on strike officially in their apps? I was, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Natalia. And the last but not the least, the one is from Berkey. It's about actually skills and competencies of our engineering team. How to build a platform that we built.
Oh my gosh, 12 years. No, it's already 13 years of meticulous work. A lot of precise determination and choosing the and collecting data, analyzing data to see what works best. So okay, a lot of work. But thank you so much for your high appraisal of the product that they've created.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's very difficult to name like certain technologies because there are so many of them. And
Yeah, but okay, if it's still a question of key skills and competencies, we have just a quick question because it's hard to answer, but we have more than 100 developers who are divided into teams that are dedicated to different aspects of the product. So we have app development team, we have, and they're both like Android and iOS. We have backend developers, front-end developers. We have people who work with integrating different systems in the platform. So it's, and when we talk, and this is, I'm just trying to explain you why it's impossible to even say anything about skills and competencies, because for each aspect of the product, we have different requirements, because they can move, the development can move in different paces. Sometimes we need, let's say, to update the driver app faster or anything. So it's just, it's been a lot, but I think one of the key an important criteria that you can look at it, how long have these people been working with us? Me personally, I've been with the company more than 4 years. Lisa, I think she's been with the company more than 6 years, right?
yeah, something like that.
Yes. So that should give you an idea of how trusting and professional the company is by at least looking at how long people stay with it.
Yeah, yeah, we have a lot of people working for more than 5 years at Onde. So
Yep.
yeah, and thank you so much, Natalia, for all the answers. That was the last question, and thank you very much for everyone who joined us today. As I said, the presentation will be sent, the recording will be sent, all the questions will be answered. Thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you so much, Natalia, for an absolutely amazing, really amazing presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It's been truly a pleasure being here with you. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Bye. See you next time.